Okay, welcome to this quick screencast. I like to do a screencast if I can on some of the uh, calculations that we do as part of our course here. And today's discussion for Chapter 2 is on productivity, basically time-based strategies. And that is trying to use the time-based strategies to accomplish tasks. The assumption is that by reducing time, you're making costs lower, you're actually enhancing quality, productivity is higher, time to market is faster, and you're able to provide more effective customer service. Our productivity measures, mostly looking into the issues of our homework that's going to be due. It really is a measure of the effective use of resources, tracking an operating unit's performance, or being able to benchmark in a meaningful way. The productivity of your group against possibly the entire industry, as many of these performance measures are identical from one company to another. When we make our productivity calculations, generally we use the number of units that are produced, the standard price of those units, labor input, in this situation 500 hours, the cost of labor, how much per hour for labor, and the cost of materials, and lastly a calculation for overhead. In this situation it's 2 times labor costs. Of course, in our homework, as well as other activities in the text, it does go through different approaches to this, but generally when you're looking at productivity, you're really looking at a variation on these important components of output, productivity level, labor, materials, overhead, and the like. Multi-factor productivity generally looks at output over labor, materials, and overhead, but multi-factor simply means that you're looking at a number of different factors, so it could vary from one application to another. Our output is simply the units produced, in our situation 5,000, and the price per unit, in this situation $30 per unit. Labor is going to be 500 hours times $25 per unit. The overhead, or I'm sorry, the material, they just provide it to you here as a number of 5,000, and then your overhead is going to be 2 times your number of hours times your labor hour, or I'm sorry, your hour for labor, and basically your labor costs. We go through and we make the calculation here by simply running the numbers, plug and chug. 150,000 divided by 42,500, which is of course your labor, material, and overhead, to get a figure of 3.53. What we can say from that is we get that important multi-factor productivity rate, which is basically we have 3.5 units per dollar of output. Again, this is one way of looking at productivity and making inferences about it and making it useful for us to benchmark against other companies. A standard productivity growth ratio that we're looking at right now is basically the current productivity minus the previous productivity divided by the previous productivity times 100%. For our company here, we have labor productivity on a assembly line of 25 units per hour previous in 2016. In 2017, our productivity was $23 per hour. As we can see, this is actually a regression. We're not doing better, we're doing worse over time, but we can actually plug those numbers into our equation of our current productivity at 23, our previous productivity at 25, divided by our previous activity, our productivity times 100%, and we get a negative 8%. As a result, we can answer there is a decrease, not an increase, but a decrease of 8% in productivity between 2016 and 2017. As you can see from these different productivity measures, it allows us different ways to understand what is going on and how best to respond. We also have to recognize that measuring productivity is more difficult in the service sector than it is in a manufacturing sector. However, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. There are all kinds of intellectual activities that are difficult to measure, and also there's a high degree of variability within a service environment that you don't see necessarily in a manufacturing environment. The last point, which I think is also very important, and that is what you measure is what you get. So when you do, not if, but when you do measure in a service sector, it's important to be able to put it in context so workers that are working with your organization have perspective and can use that measure effectively. Generally speaking, when we look at factors affecting productivity, we look at the methods we're using to measure productivity, the kind of quality that we want to see, whether it's in a manufacturing or a service environment. The type of management is key to productivity, the technology you use, and we'll be addressing and utilizing different kinds of technology to measure and also to perform different activities, whether it's layouts with CAD/CAM or different kind of quality charting as we're moving through the process. And also the amount of capital that you're using will also impact productivity. Thanks for the opportunity to listen, or thank you for listening to this and taking the opportunity to go over some of these important issues. I'll look forward to reading your work for the homework that's due at the end of the week. You have a great day. Thanks again.